Raymond was, by all appearances, a man of means. A portly figure in tailored suits, he strutted around with the confidence of a man who had the world on a leash. His round belly, the result of countless gourmet meals he never actually paid for, protruded proudly as he adjusted his designer tie, bought from a knockoff stall at the local flea market. He was a master of deception. His smile, always a bit too wide, was as fake as the Rolex on his wrist. He'd built a life on lies, a palace of deceit where every brick was a fabricated story. And at the very center of this grand illusion was his wife, Miranda. Miranda was a trophy, and Raymond had lied his way to the top to win her. He met her at a high society charity gala, where he'd convinced everyone he was an oil tycoon with a string of offshore accounts. Miranda, enchanted by his apparent wealth, had no idea that Raymond's bank account was emptier than his promises. They married in a lavish ceremony, paid for with credit cards he'd never intended to repay. Raymond's lies extended beyond his marriage. He had a particular talent for conning the vulnerable, the trusting, and the elderly. One of his most shameful exploits involved Mrs. Parker, a sweet old woman who lived down the street in a creaky old house. She was widowed, living on a modest pension, and desperately needed repairs on her home. Raymond, ever the opportunist, swooped in with a charming smile and a convincing story. He promised her a full renovation, spinning tales of his connections with top contractors who owed him favors. "Don't worry, Mrs. Parker," he'd said, patting her frail hand. "I'll take care of everything. You just sit back and relax." He convinced her to take out a $40,000 loan, under the guise that it would cover all the expenses. In reality, Raymond had no intention of doing any work. He pocketed the money, assuring Mrs. Parker that the repairs would start next week. But next week never came. Months passed, and the old woman's house continued to deteriorate. Eventually, Mrs. Parker's roof collapsed, just like Raymond's lies. For a while, things were perfect. Raymond's lies were smooth, well-rehearsed, and effective. He claimed to be on business trips while sneaking into low-budget motels to avoid Miranda's suspicion. He told stories of deals that didn't exist, of assets that were pure fiction. His wife, blissfully unaware, continued to live in their faux luxury. But lies, as they often do, have a way of catching up. It started small, a missed payment here, a bounced check there. Raymond brushed it off, assuring Miranda that these were mere clerical errors at the bank. But as the bills piled up, the cracks in his facade began to show. Miranda noticed his nervous habits, the way his hands trembled as he typed on his laptop, the late-night phone calls that ended abruptly when she entered the room. One night, as Raymond was indulging in his usual habit of browsing the dark web for ways to create fake bank statements, Miranda stumbled upon an unpaid bill stuffed into his desk drawer. It was a foreclosure notice for their home. The shock hit her like a cold slap. She dug deeper, her anger growing with each new discovery. Maxed out credit cards, fake bank statements, phony business contracts, Raymond had lied about everything. The confrontation was brutal. Miranda, usually composed, erupted in a fury Raymond had never seen. He tried to lie his way out, to spin more tales, but his charm was gone, his lies unraveling faster than he could weave them. "I did it for us," Raymond pleaded, sweat pouring down his round face as he tried to find something, anything, that would salvage the situation. But Miranda wasn't having it. "You did it for yourself," she snapped. "You're nothing but a pathetic liar who couldn't tell the truth if it slapped you in the face." And slap him, it did. Literally. As Miranda walked out, she threw her wedding ring at him, the final symbol of their sham marriage. It bounced off his chest and clattered to the floor. The next few weeks were a blur of lawsuits, repossessions, and bankruptcy filings. Raymond's life crumbled around him. His friends, if you could call them that, vanished, unwilling to associate with a man whose fortune had turned out to be as fake as his smile. He lost the house, the cars, the few possessions he'd managed to keep up the illusion with. Even the cheap suits from the flea market were repossessed. Finally, alone and broke, Raymond found himself in a dingy bar on the outskirts of town, nursing a drink he could barely afford. He stared at his reflection in the dirty mirror behind the bar, seeing not the suave, wealthy man he pretended to be, but the bloated, empty shell he truly was. As he downed his whiskey, the bartender, a grizzled old man with a knowing smile, leaned in. "You know," the bartender said, The truth always has a way of coming out. You can only lie for so long before it all falls apart. Raymond chuckled darkly, a bitter laugh that turned into a sob. Yeah, he muttered, wiping away a tear. But by then, it's too late. The bartender shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe it's the universe's way of giving you a second chance, if you're smart enough to take it. Raymond didn't answer. He just ordered another drink, knowing full well that second chances were rare, especially for men like him. But as he sat there, staring into the amber liquid, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, he could start over. Not as a rich man, but as an honest one. Then he remembered the bill he'd stuck the bartender with when he'd first walked in. He chuckled to himself. Some habits, after all, die hard.